I have seen this video already, so I do know what he says, but please believe me, this shows how Ben Shapiro makes terrible arguments, illogical,
Well,
dumb,
folks,
whatever.
Democrats believe they have the silver bullet against Donald Trump in 2024. And wait for it, it's that he's Hitler.
First off, comedic timing. When you say wait for it, you're supposed to wait a little bit. That's why it's funny. Wait for it. He's Hitler. You're not supposed to speed into the next word faster than you said the other words.
Democrats believe they have the silver bullet against... Well, folks, Democrats believe they have the silver bullet against Donald Trump in 2024. And wait for it, it's that he's Hitler. As I say, the Democratic proposal is that Donald Trump must lose because he's an authoritarian. And we don't like authoritarians, except for when Joe Biden is using his pen and his phone to try to mandate that 80 million people take a vaccination.
So Joe Biden never tried mandating that everyone needs to get a vaccine using his pen and his phone. But we called Trump an authoritarian because of, number one, election denial was the huge thing. Still saying that he won the election after so many lawsuits and recounts is absolutely insane. I don't know how anybody's letting that slide, even from a loser standpoint. Like, the idea that he's still saying I actually won when he lost by 7 million votes, and the only way he could have won is if all of the recounts and legal challenges were completely wrong, that all the conspiracy theories were correct, and that he only got a couple votes swished in specific states. He got demolished by Joe Biden, and he still says he won. That's such loser stuff.
Or lose their jobs. And then they like authoritarians. Or like when they try to just by dint of executive order get rid of hundreds of billions of dollars in student loan debt, and then the Supreme Court says no. And then they do it anyway, which is the thing that's literally happening right now.
Okay, so right here is really dumb in general. And I don't like using words like dumb or calling people stupid because I don't believe that makes an argument. But for someone like Ben Shapiro, who claims to be the genius, the boy genius, talks super fast, all right, goes on college campuses and owns in debate just random college students, all right? Joe Biden's initial plan through the HERO Act and through the initial push to get student debt canceled was denied by the Supreme Court, but through different methods. So when you have loans that appreciate, that have percentages that add on to them over time because of interest added, there's different ways like income-driven repayment plans, through public service loan forgiveness, integrating those programs more, helping people with disabilities get loans canceled. There's a lot of different mechanisms to cancel student loans from the federal government that do not involve what the Supreme Court case was about. So this point right here, again, about authoritarianism and comparing it to Trump is laughable. His arguments are laughable. You should not be making these arguments as Ben Shapiro or as anyone who has access to Google. And we have ChatGPT now. We have something that'll literally Google for you, and you could ask it a question.
Right now, they've still been dispersing funds, I'm not kidding, in violation of Supreme Court ruling. Doesn't matter. The real authoritarians are people like Donald Trump. Again, no, look at that Truth Social and tell me that what you're seeing here is a burgeoning Mussolini or Hitler. Look at his Truth Social. Dude doesn't know how to capitalize right, guys.
Oh my God, his argument for Trump not being authoritarian. So think about the arguments for Biden being authoritarian versus Trump not being authoritarian. The arguments for Trump, he's such a baby. He's just a baby. He's just a little baby. He can't even spell. He doesn't know any better. He's just a little baby. You see Truth Social? He's too dumb to be an authoritarian. Duh. Bro, arguments. 0 IQ, negative IQ, in fact. All right. Arizona, since the election, 7 lawsuits. Georgia, since the election, 3 recounts, 7 lawsuits. Michigan, 7 lawsuits. Nevada, 7 lawsuits. New Mexico, 1 lawsuit. Pennsylvania, 12 lawsuits. Wisconsin, 8 lawsuits. Every other state other than those, 6 lawsuits. A million, tons of lawsuits, so many recounts. Donald Trump has lost each time, yet he still pushes conspiracy theories about how he actually won the election. That alone, being able to lie that blatantly, and having so many people believe a lie like that is so verifiably dumb, stupid, false. It's not dumb or stupid, it's just incorrect. The fact that so many people in this country believe that he still won the election is wild and scary, because when you talk about authoritarianism and about authoritarians in general and about propaganda, it's scary when you have someone who can have a cult-like fan base lead all of those people to do whatever they want. When Donald Trump brings so many people to Washington, D.C. on January 6th, and I'm not going to talk about it in the same way that Democrats usually do. But this dude literally brings a rally to DC, and during the rally says the election's fake, says Mike Pence can overturn it, which wasn't true. All right. Then when the rally's over, you can go watch it. Trump's like, all right, guys, it's time to go to the Capitol. Let's make some noise. Everybody's clapping. They're chanting, hang Mike Pence, hang Mike Pence. All right. These are unhinged, all right, scenarios. Donald Trump is an authoritarian for many reasons, all right? You can argue that authoritarian can mean fascist, leading cults, trying to overturn elections, trying to overturn democracy. You can argue authoritarianism is FDR, using too many executive orders. But Ben Shapiro didn't even use good arguments for that. And he can't use good arguments for that. He can't say Joe Biden is an authoritarian for using executive orders because Trump used even more executive orders and presidential executive powers than Biden did. Executive orders go up over time because presidents want to have control over different things. But he can't use that argument. Ben Shapiro's arguments up to this point in the video are so numbingly dumb. Don't say dumb. Don't say dumb. It's incorrect. He needs to know better. He needs to know better. And it needs to be a media front because these arguments are terrible.
Misspells basic words. Like, when he was president of the United States, his authoritarianism amounted to him saying things on Twitter that he then didn't do. But this is going to be their entire... Like, no one thinks Donald Trump is this scary. Seriously.
Things he did actually do, all right? And another sign of an authoritarian, every legitimate, like, legal professional, every person that tried helping Trump's campaign got fired from Trump's campaign after the election in 2020. There's a reason Rudy Giuliani and like the Kraken lady and a bunch of all these other conspiracy theorists were the only people on Donald Trump's team, because every even 1% reasonable person said they would not work with Donald Trump because he is absolutely off his rocker, okay? He has no grasp on reality, and he probably does know reality, but the issue is he's an authoritarian. He doesn't care about democracy. He cares about power grabs for Donald Trump. Trump has been in this for a long time. He's been friends with the Clintons. He's been friends with Democrats, Republicans, Jeffrey Epstein, everybody you can list, even in the conspiracy theory realm, even the people that are seen bad by conspiracy theorists. Donald Trump has relationships with them. Trump's entire career was built off of his brand. Trump got a huge inheritance. He did not make money from making cool deals. He was able to sell a brand. He was able to be a reality TV star with a huge inheritance and a huge business from his father that let him look like a businessman. So that propaganda and the ability to propagandize to that extent makes someone extremely dangerous, depending on wherever they decide to take it. Okay, and when he's talking about Proud Boys, Stand By, whatever,
I'm sorry,
all that stuff added on,
suggesting that January 6th was a massive crisis level event for the problem, not just an ugly, horrible thing that happened, which I agree, ugly, horrible, bad images of people storming the Capitol building, hurting police officers and all the rest. That was not an existential crisis for the United States, not remotely. It was a bunch of dolts and some people who were like in good faith there and wandering the halls who held up the procedure for like 2 hours. And then
we're talking about certifying an election for the president of the United States, all right? Ben Shapiro is among the camp of conservative commentators that would probably call for protesters blocking a road to be ran over, all right? We have the president being certified, all right, from a completely certified election that was completely legitimate. And there are people that overran the building and delayed that election being certified by hours. And we're normalizing that point. So once we get to the point of normalizing that, where can it go next? When you have someone who has proved time and time again, Donald Trump, that he will literally do anything to make a power grab.
That was it.
And by the way, January 6th, all right, I always talk about it in the sense of, it's really bad normalizing something like that. The idea so many people actually think the election was stolen. A lot of these conspiracy theorists, most of them from like upper middle class suburbs, by the way, that flew there, they were cosplaying as they were doing it. It was wild. The thing was, it wasn't bad enough to sound enough alarm bells. It wasn't bad enough for the public to keep it in their memories. So now we have the potential for something like that to happen, but worse. What happens when another election happens with the same group of people who were somewhat tame, all right, somewhat. We still had a lot of danger there. And even the talking about it now makes me minimize it. But what happens when this continues repeating throughout history? And this group of people believes that 4 presidential elections have been stolen. That's how you continue to radicalize people deeper and deeper and deeper to the point where they are willing to commit violent acts, and they're willing to act in a way that is very antisocial from a criminal sense, and that will hurt your entire, not just society, not just people, but the institutions that were able to keep America alive. It was all based on these principles of democracy that this person, Donald Trump, hates.
Who held up the procedure for like 2 hours.
I'm not even someone that cries about Trump often, all right? I'm not the person to say, oh, he's being offensive or any of that, unless if there's real world implications to what he's saying. I don't care about all of that. I think some of the Donald Trump comedy routines are funny. I think he's a funny public reality TV star, all right? But that's what he is, a reality TV star who's very power hungry and who has the ability to manipulate people.
Or like in good faith there and wandering the halls.
In good faith,
Who
there,
held up the procedure
wandering
for
the
like
halls.
2 hours.
Only
And
2
then-
hours, guys. He held up the certification of the presidential election by only 2 hours after Trump brought the entire mob there and told them to go up the Capitol. And Trump's own advisors, Trump's kids, were begging Trump to call it off and to tell the supporters to calm down, and Trump kept saying no.
That was it. But they're still going with the Trump Hitler thing here.
Poison.
Oh, wow. Okay, so after we talk about all these other elements of like fascism and all that, and I don't like using the word fascism. If you've ever seen my channel, you know I don't like big words, all right? I'd rather go straight at the point. So racism, fascism, xenophobia, homophobia, all of those words, I don't use those typically to describe people, unless if I'm giving another reinforced argument, because I feel like a lot of people use those words as cop-outs, all right? You don't like someone who's a Democrat, oh, it's because they're a crazy socialist. You don't like a Republican, oh, it's because they are a fascist or racist or whatever else. These are easy cop-out words. I think it's much more effective to call people out directly. When we talk about Trump and fascism, I've said from the beginning that he's had these tendencies of being illiberal, which means against liberalism, and liberalism means just like a democracy. Trump doesn't care about the rule of law. Trump doesn't care about institutions. Trump doesn't care about elections and all that stuff. All of this stuff leads him to the category of fascist, working with these small militia groups, telling the Proud Boys to stand by or whatever. All of this stuff. These are tendencies when you talk about fascism being far-right, authoritarian, relying on propaganda, all of that stuff. Your fan base is like a cult. It's not a good thing if your fan base is like a cult. Politicians should not be your stars. Politicians should not be God to you. You should not treat a man like they are God. But Trump supporters do treat, and not Trump supporters, the really, really bad ones that would do bad things, all right? You literally view him as God. After all the arguments, we get to the point where, okay, Hitler quote, why not? All right, he said a lot of things that are in line with Hitler quotes and Hitler books. But when you say that, like I said about the other words, Hitler is the thing to call everyone. You call someone Hitler if you don't like them. That has been a stereotype for 30 years now, especially now with the internet being more active. But then you have a guy come up like Trump, and it's hard because it's like the boy who cried wolf. He's actually exhibiting signs of an authoritarian. It's probably more like Orban. It's probably more like Hungary. It's probably more like Russia. It's probably more like that style fascism. It's probably more like Brazil style fascism with like Bolsonaro. It's probably more like that. Trump isn't like Hitler. He's cut from an authoritarian cloth. But then you get to the point where it's like, okay, Trump is like doing the thing. Trump is doing the thing.
Which has invaded the national body, especially the strong influx of foreign blood. That is from Mein Kampf. As a historian, Doug, what did you hear in the former president's remarks?
I heard a former president who is jibing on fascism. There's no question about that being a line from Mein Kampf. He knows it. He's been dabbling in Adolf Hitler his whole life, keeps Hitler's speeches at a bedside. Mein Kampf seems to be the book that's inspired Trump the most. So it's heinous because it's the kind of language meant to belittle people, dehumanize them.
See, I'd rather the second part be the point. Like, what does the language mean? We make the comparison to show that, okay, these quotes and these tendencies and his policies are in line with men and leaders. I only say men because it's only been men throughout like the World War IIs. When it comes to all of that, I don't know what I
And
just
when
said.
we're
I don't know what I just said there, but
making an anti-Trump comment when
I meant to say everyone, not just men. But back then there only were men.
we're saying
Clarify.
he is a fascist, guys, that really we're dealing with a fight in our country between democracy and fascism.
Okay, so when we talk about like evaluating this history professor, which by the way, get some media training. I don't want people talking about this stuff unless if you have media training and you know how to talk about it and you know who you're talking to. Because they don't make it sound the best when they're making arguments. So Trump says illegal immigration is poisoning the blood of our nation. Okay, and Hitler said the poison which has invaded the national body, especially the strong influx of foreign blood. They're coming from prisons, mental health institutions from all over the world. Without borders and fair elections, you don't have a country. Make America great again. That statement overall is authoritarian. It's selling conspiracy theories. It's incorrect about like immigration in general, the effect that it has. Even illegal immigration is not correct about the effect it has on a country. Even when you look at crime statistics for illegal immigrants, in this case, it doesn't align with what they claim. All right, from prisons, from mental institutions, they're coming from all over the world. This is meant to incite fear, and if you incite enough fear, and this is the main point, you incite fear over a period of time. You keep on selling a conspiracy theory. You don't get what you want. You grow a cult-like fan base, and you have social media to do it. Over time, that fear converts to more and more and more anger. And if you have enough anger and you convince people that it's an existential crisis, that they need to defend you to survive, they will do bad things if they believe you're under attack. And that's why Donald Trump also always frames it whenever there's something that doesn't go his way. So, for example, when they had 500 lawsuits and 8 million recounts of the 2020 election, whenever Donald Trump would lose something, he would say, "This is not an attack on me. This is an attack on you." And you can look up any Trump speech. The reason he says that is so his fan base can identify with him. And whenever something happens he doesn't like, he will say to his fan base it's an attack on them as persons. So when Trump got arrested or whatever, and that mugshot, that got people really fired up because they didn't see Trump in a mugshot. They didn't see someone who was born into wealth, who lied about everything his entire life, who uses propaganda techniques, who is literally just an actor, who was a lifelong Democrat and friends with Hillary and everyone else. He was best friends with all of them. They don't see that. All right. They see themselves. They see their country they want to maintain. They see their country before all the social justice movements and before all of that stuff. That's what a lot of people see. They identify with him. And this wording is very intentional, and it mirrors that of Hitler. It mirrors that of Orban in Hungary. It mirrors that of Putin. It mirrors that of any police state or propaganda state. It's going to mirror cult leaders as well, because you try to build that among your fan base because they'll do whatever they want. Or they'll do whatever you want them to do. And that's the main criticism and main point here. So I don't want someone going on the news and just saying that this is fascism versus democracy. Tell us what that means, okay? People who go to college for 20 years to study fascism do not understand it very well in many cases. Very much less do they know how to understand fascism, and also do they know how to communicate those ideas and their arguments to others. So when you have a history professor coming on the news like this, it usually doesn't turn out the best as far as messaging goes and information.
Mein Kampf. As a historian, Doug, what did you hear in the former president's remarks?
Like, you have so many good things to attack and you bypass that for the Hitler argument and just say fascism. You say buzzwords. People are used to hearing the buzzwords about everything. The boy who cried wolf. Attack the points. Attack the points. I know you're on the news. We need time to attack the points. And this is on news agencies too. Actually attack the points.
Making an anti-Trump comment when we're saying he is a fascist, guys.
Like, live free or die. You're gonna die. If I don't win, you're gonna die. The country's gonna fall apart if I don't win. If Trump doesn't win, you're gonna die. If I go to jail because I'm Trump, then you go to jail. They're gonna come for you next. If they go for Trump, they're gonna come for you. If Trump, slips and falls, that actually means that the CIA is making you fall. Like,
and Trump's telling you that he's not.
well, that's
he doesn't
New Hampshire.
really mind the Hitler.
That's their thing up there.
Comparison, because at heart he admires Hitler.
Yeah. Like, really,
I feel like there's a difference between the nationalism and patriotism too. Even in that statement, live free or die. You can either see it as like a rallying cry where it's like, yeah, live free or die, in a sense of, a figure of speech. I'm going to live free or I'd rather not live. You don't literally mean die when you say stuff like that most of the time. But then that's like a more patriotic message. Like, I'm a patriot. I'm going to protect freedom and the Constitution. And if you want to take over the Constitution and change it, do that over my dead body, figuratively. I'm going to fight against that. But with nationalism and fascism versus patriotism, nationalism and fascism, those leaders convince people it's actually live free or die. And live free to them means that if there's any type of government regulation at all, you're not free. And anything that is done against Trump means you're not free. So if you don't stop those things, you're going to die. You're going to literally die.
who buys this? Seriously, does anyone buy this? Meanwhile, Eddie Glaude doing the same routine on MSNBC.
I mean, Ben Shapiro's arguments so far have been false about Biden, very incorrect, just false points. About Trump, he said Trump's too much of a little baby to know what he's doing. And right here, he literally does not make an argument.
Who buys this?
Who buys this? Guys, come on. Who buys this?
Seriously, does anyone buy this?
Seriously? Come on.
Meanwhile, Eddie Glaude doing the same routine on MSNBC.
Come on, guys.
MSNBC, the Trump is Hitler channel, is they say that Trump is tapping into long-standing illiberal tradition. Again, hearing people on the left talk about illiberal traditions as they simultaneously
do pronouns, when Trump is saying that the country's going to die if his supporters don't storm the Capitol. It's the same as when I go on a college campus
shut down
and when they call me a pronoun, a pronoun,
speech,
not a
on campuses,
pronoun.
tell people that they are not allowed to use biological pronouns.
Bro, it's comical. It's comical. It's insane.
Use
Oh
the
my
power of the
goodness.
pen and the phone to do whatever
Use the
they
power of the pen and the phone.
damn
pronouns.
well, please.
They got the pen. They got the phone. They got the pronouns. Oh my God! It's literally oh my.
I'm having some trouble squaring the circle here.
True.
Remember, Nazi lawyers in the 1930s are actually looking to American law, anti-miscegenation law, immigration law, as examples. Mein Kampf actually quotes the American project as an example.
America, okay? So American scientists and all of that stuff. A lot of America's studies on eugenics were used by countries to justify harmful things when it comes to race and different groups of people. So in America, for example, we had a thing called slavery. We had a very difficult process to get to the civil rights movement, the core of it, where the Civil Rights Act was passed. In World War II, and during the rise of Hitler, many Americans, not only did Americans say we shouldn't get involved, which isn't as extreme, because you can argue just, we don't want to get involved in a war. But many Americans, if you look at polling data, had very small issues with what Hitler was doing. There was a large population of the U.S. that were actual neo-Nazis, or what would be considered neo-Nazis today. They had swastikas. They were skinheads. I live in the Northeast. There were a lot of skinhead groups in the Northeast. The KKK. A large part of the general American public did not want to intervene with what Hitler was doing, and they thought, whatever, we don't care. But America at the time did not like Jewish people, all right? In the army, even when black people and Jewish people were allowed to serve, Jewish people had to serve in a completely different unit from black people and from white people, and everyone had to serve in different units. America had a long-standing tradition of this. We did a lot of eugenics. We did a lot of this stuff. And countries like Nazi Germany did use us as inspiration. And a lot of Americans were actually pro-Nazi Germany, a decent number. I'm not saying a majority or anything close to that, but a pretty sizable segment of America was pro all the bad stuff. And if Ben Shapiro doesn't at least acknowledge that,
Exemplary project. Remember
a little
in
bit scary.
1939 in Madison Square Garden, there's an extraordinary Nazi rally. So part of what Trump
Yeah,
is
1939, in America, Nazi
39
rally.
in Madison Square Garden, there's an extraordinary Nazi rally. So part of what Trump has done, he's tapped into
And a lot of it was America making moves in the right direction. And there's a portion of Americans at the time that were like, hey, we're going in the wrong direction, so we're going to support this Nazi Germany thing. I mean, I'm sure they had different words to describe these things at the time, but they supported what was happening because it more aligned with what people at the time in the early and mid 1900s saw as what was the great America, what was the good America, taking America back, making America great again.
A long-standing illiberal tradition in the United States.
The word illiberal, we should fix that. Illiberal just means like anti-democratic, authoritarian, all that stuff. Illiberal to most people sounds weird because we know that 90% of people in America, and I critique the messaging a lot and pause too much because it really does annoy me. Illiberal, and I say it too, doesn't mean much to people. They know liberal and conservative, Republican, Democrat. Illiberal, many people probably think that just means anti-liberal when it means something very, a lot more consequential and a lot deeper than just that.
States, and is exploiting it. So we need to see the newness of it, but also see what is actually quite familiar.
By the way, some of the biggest supporters of Mussolini and Hitler in the early 1930s, people in the Democratic Party, including, by the way, FDR. If you know...
Oh my God. Literally, FDR complimented how they were using like executive power and supporting workers. Okay. So when all these fascist things started, and Ben Shapiro, again, dumb, just ignoring facts. When these things started, like Mussolini and Hitler, they all started off with the same tones. And this is another comparison to what's happening in modern times. It all started off saying, we are doing it for the little guy, for the worker, for the working class. We are going to unify and use our strong unified power through me to create change. Now, FDR liked that. Okay, FDR actually did very similar things when it comes to governing. FDR was one of our most authoritarian presidents when it comes to just using the government as president to do what he wanted it to do. So like the New Deal and a lot of the other initiatives were largely done because FDR could force it through, all right? Would not take no for an answer. And he respected that initially, all right, about these other leaders like Mussolini and Hitler, before all the human rights. I can't even say human rights abuses because it's deeper than human rights abuses. But before all of that stuff happened, that support was instantly revoked when FDR realized, oh no, these guys aren't doing the same thing we're doing. How can you make that argument when literally a segment of the okay. When FDR had barely any information, he's like, okay, somewhat similar. I also use executive power. FDR did good things with it, all right? We're lucky about that. So I'm editing, and I want to make clear when I say good things, I am not saying only good things or like, that he did nothing bad because we had Japanese internment camps. But in comparison, yeah, still authoritarianism, still top-down government control, but Mussolini, Hitler, if you read the Doctrine of Fascism, a lot of it sounds like a speech you'd hear today from a more nationalist, super far-right Republican in America about workers, about nationalism, about a national sense of pride, and they use language in the Doctrine of Fascism, and Hitler used it as well, like this weird stuff. Like, it's really a weird way to talk about reality. But they'd say things like, they're poisoning the blood of our country. If you disagree, you poison the blood of our country, and these immigrants are poisoning the purity or whatever. They all talked like this, all of that stuff. All the fascists. And that big difference right there in the middle, all right? Eventually, when it became clear that like Hitler was trying to dominate the entire world and literally do an entire genocide and all the other million bad things, FDR was like, no, never mind. Never mind. That's against our national interests. We're really lucky about that. It's probably not good that one person has too much power, but we're lucky. Literally, FDR, one of the big efforts was getting us ready for a war movement to join this war against them. Like, I don't get the argument. Like a big part of FDR's propaganda movement at one time was to go against Hitler and Mussolini. Like, I don't get
audio engineer field. It is
oh my
typically
God, it
well,
hurts.
folks, Democrats
Painful.
believe
Oh
in
no,
the silver
I restarted
bullet.
it.
I see you, Mike. I see you. Well, ZipRecruiter,
Ad,
Trump,
leave.
because that's just the reality. Daily Wire. That's ZipRecruiter.com/DAILYWIRE. ZipRecruiter is the smartest way to hire. We're going to have to bring back good Trump, bad Trump, because that's just the reality of Trump. Sometimes he says good things, and sometimes he says bad things. Well, yesterday, He decided to once again attack Chip Roy, one of the most conservative members of the House Republican caucus. He said, has any smart and energetic Republican in the great state of Texas decided to run in the primary against Rhino Congressman Chip Roy? For the right person, he is very beatable. If interested, let me know. Guess just be very clear. Chip Roy.
There's a reason that Trump can win debates with saying no true information. There's a reason Trump can win debates without saying one fact. His ability to do that alone makes him very dangerous. Okay? It's impressive.
Roy is one of the best congresspeople in America. He's an excellent congressperson, deeply conservative. He's one of the people who pried concessions away from Kevin McCarthy. So if you liked those concessions.
Okay, well, Trump doesn't like good conservatives because good conservatives are too liberal for Trump. Because here's the big point. Ben Shapiro and anyone else, here's the big point. There's a reason Trump doesn't like them. There's a reason Trump doesn't like conservatives who are anywhere close to supporting democracy and institutions. Any Republican that is in favor of what every lawsuit said and what every recount said and what the election said, any Republican who did not agree with literally every word Donald Trump has ever said has been called a rhino. Every single person who does not walk in step perfectly aligned with Trump is considered the enemy. It's not about conservatism. It's not about liberalism. It's not about Democrats or being woke or being racist. It's not about any descriptive quality. It's not about anything to do with politics or governing. The only thing that matters in this situation when discussing Donald Trump is someone who is an extreme narcissist who wants to maintain power, and someone who has a great ability to garner a cult-like following without saying true things, without needing to rely on reality at all. That is the overall danger and concern with what we're talking about. That is what makes Trump not a conservative, not a super deep conservative, not a constitutionalist, not anything. That's what makes Trump an authoritarian. That's what makes Trump a fascist. And I know this is long-winded, but it is what it is. In this clip, Ben Shapiro is using literally zero IQ arguments. I can't. Okay, stop saying that. It's not zero IQ. It's false. I need to stop calling people dumb or other degrading words because I don't want people to think that I think they're dumb. Because I think Trump supporters, I do believe many of them are great and are being manipulated. I don't believe anybody is really dumb. But when it comes to Ben Shapiro, he is either purposely saying really factually incorrect stuff because he's doing media, which is disgusting already, because he's supposed to be independent media guy. But it's also just like, if he doesn't realize these are dumb points, maybe he's being lazy. I don't know. It's just, is Trump Hitler? Who cares, man? Let's talk. Let's actually talk about this stuff.